Hello, so in this video I'm going to have a look at the Georgia Guidestones and do some comparisons to some other architecture that I've dealt with, and have a look at how there's an underlying system through all of these things, and there's some very simple conversions into measurements, and you're always going to come back to these same sets of numbers hidden underneath, and the Georgia Guidestones are not separate from this, but there's a lot of stuff out there. But if you have like the famous the rules, the 10 commandments, so to speak, of the Guidestones, and I think if uncool thing to say, but if you read them, actually they're quite cool, I think. Now, the only issue I would have is on how you would get to a population of 500 million. Now, the only way for it to happen in less than a millennium or a few centuries would basically be through a big kill-off. But let's assume that that's not the way it's going to happen. If we could equalize out to a smaller population, but yeah. So anyway, the last one especially: be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. Now, on their own, I think these are quite very cool laws to think about. Prize truth, beauty and love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Now, on how we would get to these things is a very big issue and very big reason of concern if it was to be brought in, but that's a separate topic into my measures. Now, some very cool features about the Guidestones is they have the modern languages, but also they have ancient languages written throughout that have other symbols, other sort of meanings. But some plaques in the area also sort of detail this, but they also have astronomical connections. So a lot like Stonehenge and these other monuments, they have apertures and little grooves and stuff, which give it astronomical alignments, working as a sundial, and all these other features which are pretty standard on all of the ancient monuments, beginning basically from the beginning of recorded time, such as Malta, Skara Brae in Scotland, etc. They all have these same types of alignments going on. But just a sort of quick look at around the building now. So you basically have 4 stones, and then with a capstone on the top. The 4 stones have English, Chinese, Arabic, Swahili, and these other languages. But on the top stone, on the capstone, we have 4 ancient languages. So here we see Egyptian hieroglyphs, cuneiform from Babylon and Mesopotamia, ancient Sanskrit, and they also have ancient Greek on there. Now, again, lots of speculation and talk about that. I won't get into that because honestly, there's nothing more I can say, nothing to have. But there is a very clear, very definite secret hidden in plain sight, and to understand that, you need to go back to Tony Rosenthal and his black cubes. In a recent video, which is based on the Great Pyramid, I used the black cube sculptures of Tony Rosenthal as a starting point to see how this system is international, but also very, very ancient. It has ancient roots. But what can we find from Tony Rosenthal's black cubes? Well, there's basically 2 standard formats you have, with edge lengths of 105 inches or 175 inches. The same underlying hidden message in the black cubes of Tony Rosenthal, the same thing is hidden in the Georgia Guidestones. Now, the total height of a monument, 19.25 feet, or 0.2734 Doric chain. Doric, very important. Now, we look at the comparison with the black cubes of Tony Rosenthal, 2.734 or 27.34 in Doric and Ionic. So he has 2 formats, and both of those have this 2734, which is in Doric scale, and in the Ionic scale, as can be seen in tracing boards. These are the 3 orders of ancient Greek architecture, and it's one of these constants that runs through all of these modern esoteric sculptures as well as with definite origins in the ancient world. So the Great Pyramid itself has multiple references to this 27.3 and so off, especially through the Doric rod and or the chain or links. Now, because of various issues, but let's move to the not just the measures but also the weights of Old Kingdom, old Egypt. 27.3 gram or a Deben of 13.666 grams. The exact same scale of measure that's been found in the Indus Valley. So long before officially connected, somehow the people of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa synced up with the Old Kingdom on scales of weights and measurements. Astounding coincidence, isn't it? But the scales of measurements can be locked into the Greek period, as in the Parthenon, the Ionic and Doric, and etc. But also the ancient Greek uncia, the ounce, 27.3 grams. The Romans would be using that same gram, which they would also pass on to the Byzantines, but this 27.3 seems to have been, I don't know, locked in our subconscious or partially passed on. But the Islamic ounce and before them the Byzantine ounce, but the Spanish 27.3 grams or 8 cob, this 27.3 and 8 connections, quite an interesting one. India, the Sangra medal. Now you might call that a legacy of the English Empire in the old days, but what's happening with the new 50p piece, 27.3 and 8 grams. They've just shifted measures, but they've kept the same thing going on. Avoirdupois Dupois weights 27.34375 grams, exact pinpoint to the same number that's in the Georgia Guidestones and etc. But I want to go into this a lot further in some future episodes, but across the world, across cultures, in the great temples, in the great objects, 27.3 total length of the Iron Pillar of Delhi, but also in previous episodes, this Harmonics series, 108, but also the walls of the Taj Mahal, 27.3 yards. 108 Doric inches, 288, etc., etc. in the Arc de Triomphe touchstone building. What's the height? 27.33 fathom. Again, Eiffel Tower, 29.53 Doric fathom. That's the number of days in a full moon. 273.3 cubits and 10,800 medieval rods. What's going on with Tony Rosenthal's cubes? Exact same numbers coming in once you transfer them to so-called out-of-date scales. Suez Canal, here's an article from 1912, 108, 72, 33, 1440. What was the original depth? 27.34, exact same number as what's in the Georgia Guidestones and in Tony Rosenthal's sculptures and in the ancient weights and measures in temples and coins. Here in Australia, 1,080 inches high. Edmund Blackett, I've gone into some detail, and the same number going on, exactly the same width as the base of the Eiffel Tower. Across Canada, New Zealand, US, London, Paris, New York, any one of these cities in their major memorials and monuments, not just some random building I've picked out of a corner, cherry picking. I'm talking specific, like very important symbolic buildings with definite esoteric connections, as you'll have by following the architect, etc., or the patron. At the front of Buckingham Palace, the Victorian Memorial. One of those, classic scenes you'll see on the news. The news correspondents will take the shot. This will so often be in the background. 27.3 yards. Over to the Gettysburg, the the main memorial there, 41 feet, 27.33. I would be sure that I wouldn't be. Keep going. Washington. Multiple references to this. Again, remember Washington, London, Paris, Canberra, all these cities, it's always in their major public memorials. The chamber, 27.3, 1080 Doric inches is the height. The Korean War Memorial in Washington, same thing's going on, 164 feet long, which is the same height as the Carillion in Canberra or the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. And again, both of these have 108 and or so many of these other key harmonic numbers connected with 27.3. Go over to Benalmádena in Spain, the biggest Buddha stupa in Europe, 108 feet high, 82 feet wide, 27.3 yards. DC Towers in Vienna, opened by 33rd degree Mason Buzz Aldrin. The tallest tower, 273.33, and the smaller tower, 72, which gives us 216, 288, 864, all these harmonics over in China. Same thing's happening in this statue, or wish list, 1, 2, 3 of all these harmonic numbers. And so we come back to the Georgia Guidestones, a very controversial, very mysterious building. But once again, by studying the weights and measures and applying the ancient weights and measures, especially Doric, Ionic, Corinthian, has seen in esoteric tracing boards. Mark Wilson-Jones has used the Salamis stone and shown how these, well, they've been long known Doric and Ionic, but if you use them to translate the message written in the architecture, you're always going to get the same thing, basically 108 and 273. I'll put a link in the description to the earlier video, and that goes into a lot more connections, and I'll go through many other places regarding 273, the Great Pyramid, and so much more. But I'll have more coming in the future regarding this, because the meter and the foot are ancient systems of measurements. By using this system, you can clearly connect them and show, also give a reason why some very important cities and very important monuments are exactly where they are. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Have a good one.